Hello, scene of consolation. Today we will present to you 10 most astounding athletic career comebacks. Foreman. In serious games, youth isn't all that matters. In any case, better believe it, it truly is. Which is the reason George Foreman's revival is so bewildering. Subsequent to coming out of retirement around age 40, a more joyful, chubbier Foreman began boxing his way to the top once more. At age 45, Foreman made fans the world over let out their beverages and gaze at their TVs stunned after he timed 26-year-old Michael Moorer, the prevailing champ, with a correct punch to the jawline and sent him to the floor. Hurst was piling on the yardage as a running back for the 49ers. At that point came a pivotal 49er Falcon game in January of 1999. Hurst conveyed the ball for 7 years when a Falcon cautious end spun him well, every last bit of him with the exception of his left foot which had trapped in the turf. Broken lower leg. Bummer, yet not likely a lifelong executioner. Except if some abnormal difficulty makes the harmed bone beginning biting the dust. It was the feared putrefaction, it's what finished Bo Jackson's profession. As per an article in the Sporting News, to spare the foot specialists delved into Garrison Hurst's left lower leg and destroyed it. They wiped out kicking the bucket bone, and supplanted it with fittings of bone and ligament from Hurst's knees. Following 2 years of restoration, Hurst hypnotized players and fans the same when he ran for 1,206 yards and helped pivot a debilitated 49ers establishment. Joe Simpson. Joe Simpson broke his leg while making a first climb of the West Essence of a far-off top in the Andes. After a bombed endeavor to bring down him to well-being, his climbing accomplice sliced the rope to spare his own life, and left Simpson to pass on. Simpson tumbled off the side of the mountain and down into a chasm. Rather than surrendering to death in a frosty burial chamber, he some way or another advanced retreat to the surface, and afterward went through 3 days ripping at his way over an ice sheet, over rocks, around a lake. At that point at long last back to camp. Lauda. In 1976, on his way to a second world championship title in Formula One dashing, Niki Lauda hit a little obstruction he cleared out during the race. His vehicle burst into blazes, slid pull out onto the track, and was broadsided by another vehicle. Lauda got burnt inside his Ferrari, quite a bit of his face was burned before he was pulled to security. He drained inside, passed into a state of insensibility. It was sensitive for a couple of days, however Lauda got through. 40 after 3 days, he was in the driver's seat at the Italian Grand Prix. Lauda would proceed to win 2 more titles before resigning. Hamilton. On the off chance that somebody tumbles off a pony, you advise her to get ready to take care of business. Great, sound exhortation. Be that as it may, on the off chance that somebody gets her arm torqued off her body by a brutal tiger shark, nobody would set out advise her to get back in the water. However, Bethany Hamilton didn't require anybody to advise her. A month and a few activities after her misfortune, she was surfing once more. At that point, a little more than a year after the assault, she won her first national title and went genius. Raymond. Your run-of-the-mill story of kid wins the Tour de France, kid breaks wrist in resulting race, kid goes turkey chasing and gets shot brimming with buckshot by his brother by marriage, kid loses 75% of his blood on the way to the medical clinic, kid's chest is cut open and specialists channel the blood from around his fallen lung, kid endures albeit one finger is broken and 35 pellets stay in his body, remembering 3 for his heart and 5 in his liver. Kid takes 2 years to recuperate and begins dashing again in spite of devastating agony. Kid wins the Tour de France once more, and afterward once more. Mario Lemieux. Back in the mid-1980s, desires for hockey wonder Mario Lemieux were not in the troposphere, not in the stratosphere, yet in the exosphere. As indicated by a legend in One History of Lemieux, the lead trainer of the Montreal Canadiens recommended buying Lemieux's Lesser Hockey Alliance group just to get first break at the Phenom in the up-and-coming draft. Lemieux wound up with the Pittsburgh Penguins and didn't disillusion, he broke group records and was moving toward Gretzky numbers in scoring. At that point came a herniated plate aggravated by an uncommon contamination. Lemieux missed a few games. The following year he returned and drove the Penguins to their first historically speaking Stanley Cup. At that point came malignant growth, radiation medicines, more back issues, more medical procedure. Lemieux spent the following hardly any years crushing hockey in when his recuperation plan allowed and when the torment wasn't excessively horrifying or the fatigue excessively overpowering. What's more, when he played like the star that he had consistently been. Hogan. Ben Hogan was on a wild winning streak in the pro golf circuit. Then, in rolled some fog on the West Texas highway and along came a bus, barreling down the wrong lane. And all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put poor Ben back together again. According to the article Historic Trauma Cases, Ben Hogan suffered a broken clavicle, fractured ribs, a complex pelvic fracture, facial and eye injuries, a fractured left ankle and a soft tissue injury to his left leg. The agonized, bleeding athlete had to wait an hour and a half for an ambulance to arrive at the scene and scrape up what was left of him. Hogan would confound doctors by not only walking again, but returning to his beloved golf. In 1953 he became the only player until Tiger Woods came along to win 3 major PGA tournaments in 1 year. 2. Ruff Bleier. Subsequent to captaining the Notre Dame football crew, Rocky Bleier was drafted twice. First by the powerful Pittsburgh Steelers, at that point by the United States Army. He went from commander on the field, to private in the wilderness. On August 29, 1969, his detachment went to the guide of another unit under trap. Bleier took a shot through the leg. Minutes after the fact, a projectile detonated close to him, riddling his foot with sulfur-bound shrapnel. Draining vigorously, he crept through rice paddies, and in the end with some assistance, made it to a chopper and was traveled to clinical camp. Afterward, he was shipped to Japan to experience inactivity. Specialists expelled in excess of 100 bits of shrapnel from his foot. The clinical staff let him know whether he drove forward, he may walk typically again sometime in the not-so-distant future. Playing football again was out of the condition. Not very numerous years after the fact, Rocky would have 4 Super Bowl rings to go with his Purple Heart. Armstrong. You realize Lance needed to top this rundown. He needed to. He might be detested as much as cherished, however he's generally appreciated for his restoration. Armstrong made a sprinkle in the cycling scene, marked a rewarding agreement, at that point got determined to have testicular malignant growth, and let's be honest men, the possibility of disease makes us jumpy, The possibility of malignancy in the tenders freezes us. The malignancy was very exceptional and had spread to his mid-region, lungs, lymph hubs, and his cerebrum. Specialists gave him a 40% possibility of endurance. Armstrong decided on medical procedure and forceful chemotherapy medicines. Chemotherapy is an evil spirit the entirety of its own. It can cause soul-smashing episodes of queasiness, stomach issues, iron deficiency, joint dormant. A whole record of risks and inconveniences. So what does Armstrong do? In case you're thinking chocolate milkshakes and kids shows in bed, you're off track. Between chemo meetings, the person goes cycling. Armstrong considers malignant growth to be his most prominent rival, and he became resolved to beat it. When he did, yet the fight had negatively affected his physical and mental molding. To exacerbate the situation, his support